Hello, thank you for joining us for this next session for Compass Virtual 2020. Clearly, as you can see here, we have Naor, the CMO at TrialScope. Today, he'll be talking to us and sharing about how TrialScope, his routines for the marketing and sales alignment using PathFactory. So if you're joining us now, as you might have noticed, this is a pre-recorded session. However, we do have chat moderators live there now. You'll see them commenting, letting you know that they're there. If you have any questions during the presentation or you need any, have any comments, feel free to put it in the chat. We also have the slides and other useful content and the supplemental content. So if you're having trouble following along the slides, you want to go back and see something as we're being presented, you can click that and follow at your own pace as well. So again, thank you so much for joining, Naor. I'm going to go ahead and just turn off my camera and let you drive. And thanks so much for joining us and sharing this story with the PathFactory and our Compass virtual attendees.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be sharing some of the routines that my team and myself have gotten into since we adopted PathFactory about 8 or 9 months ago. So let's just dive right in. The agenda is going to be pretty quick. I wanted to hit on a couple of key topics, discuss a little bit of my daily routine as a CMO of a small team here, talk about the weekly reports that matter to me, and then dive into PathFactory for sales people. I put people because I think we have to understand how the sales team wants to use PathFactory to their benefit. So I'll touch on some of the ways that have been successful for us. And then lastly, I'll talk about something really important, and that's building trust through thresholds. That's a little bit of alliteration, but just understanding how we best use PathFactory data to build that bridge of trust between the things that we hand over to sales in our qualification process. So let's just dive right in. My daily routine. Like a lot of marketing leaders, we have dashboards, we have reports. Our MarTech stack is pretty big. Certainly PathFactory is a big part of that for me. So if you're really serious about leveraging PathFactory in Salesforce, you need to make sure that you add it to your navigation bar. And I would also encourage the sales team to do the same, because they should ideally start their day along with whatever other marketing automation dashboard you might have, like Marketo, or other competitive intel or funnel intel metrics that they see in Salesforce, depending on your stack. But that'll provide a lot of interesting moments about the day or the week before. And we'll dive into that a little bit later. But for me specifically, I like to look at the activity over the last 7 days. And I always adjust the settings in the top right to reflect the week that I'm in, which I understand is not the case in this screenshot. But the point here is that I'm looking for insights into our most engaged accounts. And primarily, I'm interested in ensuring that no anonymous accounts fall through the cracks. And what I mean by that is accounts that are identified by PathFactory via the reverse IP, but that maybe haven't had an actual lead materialize through a form submission. And for us, because we're sort of soft on how frequently we gate content, there might be a lot of folks on this list that haven't pulled through into the funnel. So this is also a nice sanity check for me, because it lets me validate, the things that I see in some of the other reports and systems, right? Like, for example, in MQL reports. Of course, I get those in real time. I'll show you a list that I even subscribe to for the team. But at the account level, I like to look here because it's based specifically on PathFactory engagement time data. So that's really useful for me. And the goal is I'm answering that daily question of who's hot right now across everyone engaging with our assets. And, of course, if you've built a robust scoring system, then it's very likely that those same active accounts have triggered, MQL alerts or MQA alerts, however you'd like to phrase them. And I'll get to that in a second. But for me, it's just this peace of mind. And I really like the way the information is stacked in this dashboard and my ability to dive in and get more information if I choose to. So I spend a couple minutes every morning, and I really like this. And I'll do the same with a custom search that I created for accounts with opportunities, which is probably even more important. And I like to see how marketing is helping engage these very important accounts. And if I see, very low activity, that's an indicator that I need to do better with my team on a specific account. And in the back end, you can actually run reports that will show you, opportunity accounts that have no engagement, which is really even scarier for the marketing team and is something that we need to address immediately. But I love having the ability to flip between prospect accounts and accounts with opportunities and see the same kind of overlay. And then, of course, if I see something really interesting or an account I don't recognize, from monitoring our MQL traffic, I'll use PathFactory for Sales to do a deep dive. And I'll see if it's a single contact or multiple contacts. And I might even spend a few seconds reviewing their individual activity. And the point there is that I like to pay attention to any recurring themes or topics that they're reading. And I'll usually spot check any big, engagers against my MQL emails. And I just want to make sure nothing strange is going on, right? I mean, even if you have a really buttoned up system, you want to make sure, did the sales team reach out? What's the messaging sound like? And for us, we're pretty low volume, so we can afford to have that time. And it's worth it for me because for us, every deal is the Super Bowl. So I like to make sure that I'm really embedded. I see the activities going in and out. I see our sales team reaching out. I connect all those dots, but I start with PathFactory. And it's also a really nice way for me to see how the top bingers move from one item to another in the track. So I'll even look at sort of, okay, if they've been active the last couple of days, what does that look like? What's that engagement path? What does it look like? What are they looking at? Are they moving from track to track? It's just a good idea for me to be sort of keeping my ear to the ground. And this might be a little bit overkill, but again, because we're a low volume shop, I like to focus on quality and make sure that no lead is left behind. And so we also use Marketo, but I'm really sure you can use this data with other marketing automation integration. And we have this Marketo Smart List, which is sent out automatically to the sales managers and me every morning. And this is simply a list that shows us every lead or contact that crossed the PathFactory engagement threshold at least one time the day before. And again, I like this because it's another way to engage the sales folks in the process and ensure that they can, in 30 seconds, really look at, what qualified leads should they have reached out to if they haven't already. And you have to remember that once a person becomes MQL, at least for us, and that also applies to customers who are showing, engagement or upsell, with upsell content, they can't re-enter that stage for 30 days the way that we have our scoring set up. So this is also a nice way to see ongoing, nearly like real-time engagement, even if you're a salesperson or an account executive who's connected with this person due to that initial alert, right? And it helps provide context to any conversations that they're having. For us, especially, our sales cycles are really long. We're an enterprise technology, and that could be 6 months or more. So there's a lot going on in that content journey from start to finish. And I want the sales team to be as equipped as they can as they're meeting new people at that account, as they're having recurring conversations, as the opportunity is moving from stage to stage. This is a great way for them to say, oh, wow, I just talked to this person yesterday, and I didn't even realize that they had just, watched this webinar or read these ebooks. That's a great thing for me to take down for my next discussion with them. Now let's talk about weekly reports real quick. And, PathFactory's got a ton of reports, and I promise you I look through all of them. But fairly regularly, on a weekly basis, I'll hop into Path Analytics and I'll see how we're performing on just a couple key metrics. I also do this once a month to look at the entire month. And my content marketing manager does this quarterly to see some of the larger, long-term trends as well and make her recommendations. But I like to start with, this overview where I can just see how we're performing on some of the really top level KPIs. I know they're mostly vanity metrics, but it's still kind of, lets me keep my ear to the ground and see, okay, are we doing better? Are we doing worse? Why could that be? I also like to look at the individual, engagement around the content. So what are the top assets? If we release something, that's important for me to see. And I'll look at average time and things like that, engagement time across the board. And again, we look at this weekly. It's not going to be anything that I can necessarily action, but I love being, I use this a lot. I like to be involved in the process. I like to be involved in the engagement that's happening. Content is a really powerful thing for us. And this is just a way for me to keep my, keep the pulse of what's going on. And I also like to look specifically at track performance. And this is useful because we release content, fairly regularly. And I would say in some parts of the year, it's almost weekly. And so as I put those into unique tracks, this lets me see exactly how that piece of content and that track is performing. And I think that's really important. I don't want to wait a whole month. I need to know if we release it on a Tuesday, by that Friday, I really like to see, okay, how's it doing? How are the form captures doing for that particular track? Do we need to adjust anything? So keeping my eye on this weekly is really important. And of course, I love to pat ourselves on the back when we see binge rates going up and form capture rates going up. That's always a positive. It inspires the team to just do more with PathFactory. And now let's talk about PathFactory for salespeople. So again, I would really encourage and maybe even suggest that you do some kind of joint session to your sales and account management people, record it or create a manual, just whatever you can to help them create their own custom search filters for PathFactory for sales. This is a great for creating like a general search, for example, my accounts, right? If you don't want to look at every account that's in the system, that's the baseline. But even by stage, which I think is a great way to help salespeople organize the data in a way that makes sense for the way that they think about their pipeline. Now, we only work in one industry, which is pharmaceuticals, but I could see this being very helpful if you operate across several verticals and if your salespeople are even working across verticals as a way to organize that data. So there's like an endless variety of filters that you can add, but the custom search feature is something that our salespeople really, really like. And I would encourage you and I would encourage your teams to visit this dashboard every single day as part of their routine. We also have Marketo Sales Insight, which is complementary to PathFactory in many ways outside of content, like live webinars, trade show attendance, demo request submissions, things like that. But nothing gets us closer to the content than the way that PathFactory gives this intelligence back to us. And the salespeople really enjoy this level of data. I can't stress that enough. We've had lots of compliments from them about, wow, this is really eye-opening, and we can do such a better job when we speak to prospects about what issues matter to them. The other thing I would encourage you to get very intentional and organized with is your PathFactory backend, because that gives you the ability to offer specific tracks of content to your sales team via the Salesforce integration, as you can see here. So this is almost hidden, I think, because it doesn't really look like a button. But if you click content activation, and that you could be the sales folks as well, you get the screen. So what's great for me is, we're a team of 3 marketers and we're really busy. And now we're not being asked to produce assets all the time. Hey, where can I find this? Where can I find that? And we're not worried about the sales people accidentally attaching a PDF when they should be sending a link to PathFactory instead. So it's much more useful, and it gives a lot more credit back to the marketing team, and is also just more engaging. If you make this easy for the salespeople to organize, use, leverage, they're much more likely to be sending links to content rather than accidentally sending something outdated that they had on their desktop or something else. And it also allows them to bring people into the fold, which is important because then we begin the tracking, we begin the engagement, and all that kind of stuff that is synonymous with PathFactory. So if you do a great job here with your organization, with your tagging, with your foldering system, it's going to make it really easy for them to find what they need. And, they can filter by topic or search, which is really useful. We have a huge library of content. It's over 200 items. And I want that stuff to get used. And so when we create, nice tracks that align to product, to funnel stage, demo tracks, all kinds of things, we make it really easy for them. They just don't have to think much about it. They go in, they pick it up. And I found that's also useful is if you're using some of the engagement tools for your website, have those available for the sales team too, because a lot of the time they go to the website and they say, oh, how do we, what's the best way to talk about this one particular product? And if you've done a good job, it's on the website, right? The way that the marketing team wants that to be shared. And so here they can say, okay, I'm going to go into the website folder. Here's the product that I'm thinking about, and I'm just going to be able to pick those pieces of content. And this has tremendously reduced the amount of time and requests and delay and burden in the sales to marketing relationship, because they no longer need to come to us 99% of the time. And then the best thing you can do is acclimate your salespeople to having this wonderful visibility of PathFactory for Sales data in this same familiar interface. So in many places that they visit in Salesforce, we put a PathFactory for Sales window. And that's, the account, the opportunity, lead, contact, everywhere. Anywhere it's possible, we have it. And it's also in the same place on the record. So there's no doubt in their mind about where to find this. And, you got to put yourself in their shoes. They are looking for other things. It's not just about marketing data. So we have a tab that you can't see here because I've scrolled, but it says marketing. And when they click on marketing, anything that is marketing related, like PathFactory, Marketo, emails, things like that, it's all on one tab and it's organized really neatly. And we find that looking at the account level and opportunity level PathFactory data is absolutely key for the salespeople, because it's tremendously valuable context into what is engaging the account at different stages of the deal, maybe even with stakeholders they didn't know were involved in the deal. So it bundles all that information together. It's really, really clever. And I find that if I had to pick one thing to train my sales folks on, it'd be the opportunity level data and the account level data. Those two views are really, really insightful. And the other thing is, we leverage, of course, the explore page functionality. I borrowed my colleague Joni's example here for one of our prospects. And of course, this is a fantastic feature because it doesn't take a long time to put it together. We have created a very simple template in the appearances section of PathFactory. My team can create this in as little as 60 seconds at this point because we have everyone's headshots in the sales team. So it's really, really super easy. But to make that transition a little bit easier, we use a project management system. A lot of you probably use it, something similar. We use Rike. You might use Asana or whatever. You can even do this with Slack, I imagine, or Teams, and worst case scenario, an email. But if you have a system like this, we created a resource hub request. And I love this. I know I should call it explore page. So, our sales team can go, they have this, bit.ly link, they have it, saved, and they can go in, they can tell us, what the account name is. They can check a couple boxes off on what content themes will resonate and any messaging they want us to include. And when they click submit, we, on the marketing side of things, will get that request in our project management system, and going into the back end of PathFactory, like I said, it's 60 seconds tops, unless we're struggling to find a logo, which is unlikely. And we get that back to the sales team, and they love it. And of course, we see just from the data, these types of explore pages are huge, right? We see tons of engagement time. It makes us look like we're spending a lot of effort on ABM. It's a win-win for everybody involved. So my last thing that I want to talk about, it's the most important for me, is trust through thresholds. And I think it's one of the greatest features that PathFactory offers, and it's something everyone should be using. And it's also one of the reasons that we switched from Uberflip, quite honestly. And it helps us reduce the noise in the MQL alert funnel. And like every marketer, who's watching this, you've been on the side of being reprimanded by your sales colleagues. You've seen sales trust eroded. If you're a high volume shop, when you're sending just so many MQLs over, it's all about quality. This conversation has been going on for decades in this role. So it's just one more thing we can do as marketers to just send higher quality people across, and really focus on engagement that really matter versus somebody who is just scrolling quickly through a piece of content and not really consuming it. And so for every piece of content, we look at the content engagement threshold. And for us, we tinker around, but we think about 30% of the time that it takes you to read or watch something is about good, right? We've tested several other areas, but I think if you're sitting there for 30%, you're probably interested. And we exclusively trigger scoring based on that activity being pushed back into Marketo in this instance. But you could do this probably with Salesforce into any other marketing automation system. And whereas before, where that trigger for scoring was just a form submit, now not only do we not have to gate everything, but we have this ability to ensure that you only get points if you're engaging at the level that we, the creators, the marketers, have set. And that has been groundbreaking. Now, speaking of data, the PathFactory integration for Marketo specifically gives us tons of new fields that we didn't really have before. And it's great because when we have these marketing qualified alerts, or even, what I'd like to do in the future is have like instant real-time alerts, which I know is a best practice that we've never gotten around to. But in the marketing qualified alert email, we have so much information that we didn't have before. And if you're a salesperson on the receiving end of this, it's fantastic. And it builds that trust because you're seeing the person, what company they're from. There's some marketing type mumbo jumbo around the source and medium, which our team is intelligent enough to dissect. But then it combines for us both Marketo interesting moments and the PathFactory data, which you see here in red, to tell them, here's what happened, right? This is the last thing they viewed. Here's the amount of time. Here's the amount of assets. Here's the track. And, when you combine this with a link directly to Salesforce and then the PathFactory window that you see on the right here for that same person, it's amazingly efficient and effective at getting that salesperson the information they need before they respond and pick up the phone. And I love tinkering with this kind of stuff. And I think we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg because there's so much more data here to play with. And I love that it's time-based because previously, like I said, we were just lobbing every lead over the fence. And over time, I'm telling you that sales team was not so happy with us. And there's only so much you can do. I mean, you're qualifying on what you think is a behavior and of course demographics. But if everything is based on just visiting a web page or filling out that form, not only does that put a strain on you to gate everything, but it also forces you to accept that form submission as true engagement, which we now know is not the case at all. So really, really great to be leveraging that data. Okay, so my key takeaways, if you're gonna screenshot one thing, get a daily routine going and don't overwhelm yourself, right? There's so much data in not just PathFactory, but like any other tool you're messing with. There's so many my dashboards, I have 3 CMO dashboards in Salesforce that have pipeline data, metrics, MQL, volume stuff, right? It's a lot of stuff. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just focus on the stuff that's going to be most useful for you. Even if it's just clicking on the PathFactory for Sales tab and getting a lay of the land to see if anything looks weird or something looks awesome. It's an account that you've been trying for, to engage in a while. And then familiarize yourself with the weekly reports. And like I said, there's tons of them. So it's important, I think, to distinguish between the things you want to look at weekly, the things you want to look at monthly, the things you want to look at quarterly or even yearly, right? And I'm sure PathFactory can help with some best practices there. They've certainly helped for us. And align those reports to your KPIs. Because then you can really make it really easy to export or just update your whatever presentations you're giving to your boss or your board. And then I can't stress this enough, help sales fall in love with PathFactory and then don't stop reinforcing. You have to remember that, especially now, the sales folks have so much technology too, right? They're using SalesLoft or one of those, they have LinkedIn Navigator, they have their email, they're in Slack. Now you're adding PathFactory. They probably have other tools in Salesforce around opportunity management and RFPs and account-based management. So they have as many technologies as you do. And what I've realized is if you make it difficult for them, they're not going to use it. And that only hurts you, both of you, and the company as a whole. So with everything that I do and any technology that I want to give them, continuous enablement is amazingly key. So if you have weekly meetings where you're involved with the sales team, and I hope as a leader you are, ask them to share with you what's been like the most cool piece of data they got out of PathFactory the previous week. How has the explore function helped them win customers' affection, right? By showing that they're working overtime to put good resources in that customer's hand. And lastly, use PathFactory's data, this engagement data, to refine your scoring and a million other things you could do. Like I said, MQL alert updates, pipe that data into instant real-time alerts, which I'm dying to do and will probably do soon after this. And then build trust with your sales team. You have to work closely, right? We always talk about the sales and marketing alignment. If you're a PathFactory customer, you're probably already key to that. Like you're keen that this is a great thing. And the better we can get at giving data, giving good quality leads, good quality customer information, you're going to build that trust. That relationship will be really solid. You'll all pat each other on the back. And ultimately, you're going to win in the form of retention, revenue, pipeline, all the above. So this is just one thing that I stress. And that's it for me. So, thank you for letting me, rant for 20 some odd minutes. If you have questions, if you want to connect, I'm on LinkedIn. I love talking PathFactory shop. I love talking data. And again, thank you so much to Preston and the PathFactory team for inviting me to speak. I hope you enjoy the rest of the content and best of luck with the rest of your PathFactory.